Like any sport, there is a certain joy to identifying and keeping an eye on emerging prospects. Not only because of how vast their accomplishments in the future might be, but, and I think this is certainly very relevant to the ever-evolving world of MMA, these new fighters do give you a sense of where the sport is headed, where the next trend might emerge. And in the most recent wave of Dagestan fighters who are bringing their mastery of a hugely difficult style to contend with, I'm as excited to watch the progress of Muhammad Mokaev as I am to watch any rising talent in the UFC right now. It's one thing to arrive to the top of the sport with decent hype, and then slowly building off of that to the point that people start to consider you as a legitimate title threat by the time you're 2 or 3 fights in. But when it comes to this unbeaten attraction, I do get the sense that many people have already declared him to be the #1 prospect to watch in the entire sport. And for myself, that was actually true long before he made his successful UFC debut. Muhammad Mokaev was of course born in Dagestan, but later moved over to England in his early teens, continuing his training there before eventually finding his way onto the amateur circuit. And though the amateur scene in MMA is flourishing when compared to how it was 10 years ago, it still isn't exactly the undeniable proving ground that it might be in boxing. But recently, with the emergence of the IMAFs as a legitimate source of competition and prospect farming, we're starting to see fighters stepping up to pro level with considerable experience and credentials under their belt. And for Mokaev, a quick look at his official record will tell you that while he is 7-0 with 1 no contest, his actual unbeaten streak has gone on for quite some time longer. As an amateur, he managed to compile an unheard of record, going 23-0 before moving to the professional ranks. Hell, Mokaev actually had 20 fights unbeaten and was a 2-time IMAF champion before he'd even turned 20. And according to the man himself, being a 2-time world champion at amateur wasn't even the end goal. Mokaev actually decided that to go 3 for 3 with IMAF gold, that would be his original mission, before the COVID-19 pandemic hit and he decided to accelerate his plans. And it was around the time of his professional debut under Brave CF that the name Muhammad Mokaev first came across my desk, or my table, or whatever. Anyway, while there is limited footage available on his professional career, if you do want a sense of how this uber prospect shapes up, his pro MMA debut against my fellow Irishman Glenn McVeigh is available on YouTube. And though it showed a level of almost careless ferocity from Mokaev, given that the dude was just 20 years old, his technical proficiency is truly astounding. Above all other things, it's just a damn good fight. So if you want a starting point on Mokaev, but you're not willing to wade your way through 24 amateur performances, this matchup will at least give you a sense of what the guy is about. And from that fight, along with some of the others I caught live from watching Brave events, fights that have unfortunately vanished off the face of the internet, it was clear to me that this guy's ceiling is as high as any prospect in the game right now. There's just a confidence to him, a certain aura that just can't be faked, something that continues to remind me of the early days of John Jones. And look, before you jump on your keyboard to attack me for using those 2 names in the same sentence, what I'm trying to say is that in those early John Jones fights, that 6-fight win streak before the UFC, and maybe his first 1 or 2 inside the octagon, even with the hindsight of knowing what we know now, there was just an unmistakable air to him that you don't see often. It's watching greatness as it blossoms before your very eyes. And it's not something that comes around as much as you might think. And in those early fights, Mokaev just oozes confidence, in a very different way to his clear bravado. And it's a confidence that rightfully comes from the path that he has taken through this sport. To be that young and to have the awareness of mind to take your time on the amateur scene, to fall back on your outstanding ground game where needed, but also to use this early stage to round out the rest of your game, that is very, very encouraging to see from a guy who's still only 21 years old. On a quick side note, if you're enjoying the content and would like to stay up to date with all of our weekly uploads, be sure to subscribe to the channel now to ensure that you know all of the hot prospects worth keeping an eye on. Pass it off as your own knowledge with your friends if you want. MMA Dive's Prospect Watch is there to be plagiarized. Also, we recently set up a Patreon, so if you want to help support the channel, the link is in the description. Indeed, Mokaev's greatest strengths are his insane takedowns, and I genuinely mean that they are insane. His ability to suplex his opponents with incredible explosiveness and strength. Just check out his highlight reel, you'll know what I mean. And when he gets them down, he has that floaty top control and devastating ground and pound that you would expect from a man whose roots are in the hills of Dagestan. Dagestan. His submission offense is dynamic, of course, as anyone who watched his UFC debut will know, but his striking and specifically the rate of progress he is making, it's very, very encouraging. He hits hard, he selects his shots wonderfully well, and based on his ability to handle a UFC debut against an experienced opponent backed by a huge crowd of incredibly loud supporters, his mentality and ability to deal with pressure seems to be right on point. So let's talk about that UFC debut, shall we? He came in against Cody Durden, a decent flyweight, but definitely a fitting test for the youngster. One that would give us an early sense of where Mokaev may fit in within the flyweight ranks. Durden is a 16-fight veteran with strong wrestling credentials. It was good to see Mokaev stepping in there for a suitable challenge on an event in UFC London that would really let us know just how ready for this he actually is. Well, as it turned out, we didn't actually get to see too much because of how quick and easy the finish came. People were really hyping this guy during fight week, and boy, when the time came to fight, that flying knee he landed to set up the fight-ending choke, if you want to talk about meeting expectations, that right there was as good as it gets. 60 seconds weren't even hit by the time the tap came, and while of course the bigger challenges will be in the future, we definitely saw enough to warrant giving this guy some real attention. Over the years, he has competed at both flyweight and bantamweight, and though I'm always wary of pushing prospects too quickly, I do think that a steady increase in competition might be warranted here, if he does rise to meet his next challenge in similarly impressive fashion. I'm definitely on board. Not only does Muhammad Mokaev appear to have the mentality and the presence of mind needed to be a success, but at 21 he also brings a surprising wealth of experience in competition against a wide range of body types, skill sets, and attributes. He's the youngest fighter on the UFC roster, but you'd best believe that he has earned his spot under Dana White's promotional banner. But just how far do you think that Muhammad Mokaev can go? And who else would you like to see featured for this series? Do let us know your opinions in the comment section below. We always love to hear from you guys. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and a comment before subscribing to the channel so you can stay up to date with all of our latest uploads. Thank you for watching.